Thanks so much, John. I really appreciate it. I am so privileged to be here, and we are going to get right into these questions. So, Illia, let's start with Joss. Can you give us an overview, kind of a status update on Ukraine's progress in pushing back Russia, and which side do you see currently holding the advantage?
Yeah, thanks. I must say that really great. It feels really great that I'm talking to you guys right now because it's been 100 years ago since I was a student in Mariupol, and I was super excited about nuclear things, about the science behind this, political science. And one of the things that I was reading as a student was the bulletin. I think in Mariupol we even had the printed copies. So it's been a thing forever. So I'm really glad that so many years after, I have this privilege of talking. But speaking about this current war, what is trendy about the new this new period of war is the Ukrainian battle to let's call it undermine Russian logistics, undermine Russian power, the manpower, morale as well. So right now it's about like sort of a stages in which at first stage you spend weeks slowly undermining the logistics, power, munitions supplies, ground loss communications, and also exhaust their force, and then it's a breakout. It's just it happens within days that the Russian front is collapsing. But you have to work really hard to spend a lot of time in grueling hard battle to get this done, which is something that was seen, for instance, in September in Kharkiv offensive. So the war goes this way, but Russians sort of learned their lessons. And what's interesting about war now is that finally the mobilization that they did in September, it starts having an effect on the battlefield. It's about tens of thousands of basically untrained men, unmotivated men, just thrown into battle just to pick up holes and cover the gaps in their defense, because they in absolutely desperate lack of manpower for such a front line, because they launched the mobilization way too late, and Ukraine did this from day one. So and when it comes to advantage, it's definitely not the stalemate that we're having. And Ukraine did not have like a serious breakthroughs for quite a long time, quite a few weeks, because it's about collecting this cumulative effect and then breaking out. So yeah, that's the war now.
And so we also know they're attacking your logistics. Like, do you have power where you are?
That's a tricky question, because yes, they have unfolded this terror campaign, the bombing campaign against heating and electricity infrastructure. I currently live in Bucha, and the city and Kiev as well, the Kiev region, Bucha is including, we do not have electricity for 12 hours a day. It's like phases, 4-hour long phases, so 12 hours a day in total. They do this because the authorities need to stabilize the electricity supply and fix what was damaged in the. Right now, we in Bucha in the middle of this yet another 4-hour electricity. The presence of electricity for 4 hours, but that's going to end within 2 hours. But
so our timing here is perfect.
Yeah, timing is super perfect. But the thing is that I just moved to a new house, which is connected to a local railway line, so I have power all the time.
Oh wow!
Okay. Yeah, I'm kind of lucky in this regard. So right now there's like a semi-joking competition between those who do not have electricity all the time and those like nobles, the people of blue blood who got all the supplies. Yeah, the best ones. This is so say class warfare on the internet between them
over electricity.
But the biggest problem though is that during the blackouts, they do not provide power for mobile stations, for communication. So it's really hard to to go to someone. So phone connection is really, really bad. It's super annoying. And also the internet, obviously.
Okay. So President Putin began ramping up, the nuclear rhetoric this fall, raising the specter that he could use tactical nuclear weapons in Ukraine. And as he was making threats, the New York Times is now reporting that senior Russian generals were discussing the circumstances when they might possibly use such weapons. So are you all discussing, nuclear, the potential use of nuclear weapons in Ukraine all of the time? How does that topic, affect your life day to day?
Yeah, we do think about this on all levels, among general public and also expert community. We speak about this, but it's not number one topic to discuss because we have problems with electricity, and also winter is coming. Also, centralized heating is also a big question. When it comes to Ukrainian reaction to such things, maybe 3 weeks ago, maybe a month ago, we had a meme spree on Facebook saying that somebody suggested that everybody in Kiev, in case of a nuclear attack, goes to a place called Shikavitsa Mountain in Kiev. It's just like a special place in Kiev, and have an orgy. So,
okay. So,
yes, that became a massive meme. Oh, believe me, that became a massive meme with lots of internet, like pictures, memes. It's a massive thing. Many other
bizarre
cities
social
also,
media continues to dominate, even in a war zone.
That's Ukraine at its purest. So, and there have been lots of memes with new Putin threats, nuclear threats, and the meme says as if I saw Putin on TV and I came to Shikavitsa, to the mountain, and there was no one in there. Why? Or there were people who were like, let Putin just have it, finally have it. We want this. So, yes, it's part of the natural reaction of people who adapt to the new normal, because people need this emotionally, psychologically. So everybody takes it as a joke.
So one of those jokes, I just want to clarify, one of the jokes is, yes, let's have him unleash a nuclear weapon on Ukraine so that the world will attack back.
Yeah, on a serious note, yes, it's also part of the discussion that, especially right now, in light of the latest Chinese statements, the Chinese leader, I guess that was Chinese leader, in the conversation with Chancellor Scholz, he made it crystal clear that they are not happy about the perspective of nuclear use in Europe, and he said that the Russian war in Ukraine creates way too many problems for the world order. So that's quite a signal. That's quite a signal from the Chinese side. And one of the things that really prevent the possibility of the nuclear use in Ukraine is the potential reaction in the West, but also in countries like China, India, other countries that's not part of the West, but still they have a huge influence upon Russia, especially when it comes to China. So it's really right now a question of if you make it crystal clear that there will be consequences that you not going to like, because he acts. I mean, the Kremlin, Putin, they act when they are sure that nothing's going to happen. There will be no retaliation. I think the Chinese statement makes it very clear that nobody will forgive you this, and they are absolutely not interested.
Yeah. I was going to ask what do you think Ukrainians understand about Putin that maybe the West doesn't, and do you think that's the power China holds over Russia? Do you think we underestimate the importance of China in this as the war continues?
I think possibly yes. I mean, when it comes to Chinese influence, because I don't see much of discussion in Western press about the actual, Chinese influence upon the Kremlin, because over the years, especially now that Kremlin is so weakened by this war, they fall into even greater dependence on China and on their will. They have a relations of southern and the vassal for years in terms of resources, political influence. But right now, When it comes to what Ukrainians see and other parts of the world do not talk about this loud enough or often enough. I think we had the situation with Western leaders. Western leaders are now in the time of peace in Europe for many, many decades. They became basically politicians who are managers, normal managers who are not prepared for something extreme. So they, for quite a long time, they perceived the Kremlin as just another politician, as the political body who does politics, not something else. So they thought that there can be sort of an agreement. So they all play by the rules. But in reality, Western leaders and people in think tanks, they were not dealing with the politicians. They were dealing with mafia, and mafia plays by very different rules. So to us, people who have
that's an analogy actually that Americans might be able to understand.
Yeah, but now it's clear. The war has demonstrated, they revealed so many of those things, and they're not politicians; they are mafia. And we grew up. I mean, people who grew up and lived in post-Soviet space, we understand this so clear because it's so familiar. Putin is such a typical street thug that is absolutely familiar to everyone living in Ukraine, Belarus, Russia. It's just a local mafia leader, and he does not play by the rules of Apple CEO. They are absolutely from different worlds. So that's why many mistakes were made because of this misunderstanding.
Final question here. So how and when now look, without electricity, without phone service, with worries about heating, it's probably hard to imagine this right now, but how and when do you think this war might end?
I actually have the answer, but what I say in the following is just my perspective, nothing but my opinion, based on the pace of this war and how it works. I think that by wintertime, which is close to Thanksgiving Day, maybe early days of December, the Ukrainian military will be having a mission of creating the best position possible for themselves and for the country. So the mission is to ensure the better position by winter time. Then winter comes, and during winter time, the following months, we'll be having something different. There will be hostilities; they will continue, but they will be somewhat slowing down, and we'll be having a new front of war. It's the war of logistics between Russia and the Ukrainian coalition and also allies. The war of whoever is best at supplying troops and also at protecting the civilian rear. Civilian life here will be having just another war against Russian missiles, Iranian missiles, heating connections, electricity. So that was going to be like a front line between missiles and Ukrainian workers who repair stuff all the time, like 24/7. They do it all the time. Then spring comes. I think it may be the ultimate campaign. The spring campaign will be decisive, and by summertime next year, we may be having something that could be treated like an outcome of this war. I think the chances are increasingly high that that's going to be a Ukrainian victory at some form, not necessarily 100% of territory liberated, not necessarily like a program maximum, as we call it. But I think by the time, if everything goes as it should be, Russia will be stripped of its ability to go on fighting either defensive or offensive war. This is possible. We finally see the mechanism for this. We need to deny its physical ability. Morale, economy.
You could see an actual peace treaty signed.
Yes, and I'm not sure about the peace treaty because I think the war defeat, the military defeat in Ukraine would be the end of the Kremlin regime. That's 100%, and it's a big question what follows this decisive moment when there is defeat. I think the chances are very high that there will be internal turmoil inside Russia, and we are already seeing the like centers of power that will be competing in this vacuum of power. I'm talking about Wagner Group, of course. I'm talking about Kadyrovцы as well. We see it, that they're gaining more and more and more. They accumulate more and more power. They have their own private armies. So I think many heads are going to roll there, and we'll see what happens in the following. So with the Ukrainian victory, I guess, on the front line, it's not going to be the end of trouble.
But there was a
we
moment
might
when we were all not sure if the nation of Ukraine would remain, and it sounds like that in your view it will.
Yeah,
so
I think the biggest victory, I mean the most essential component for the Ukrainian victory will be Ukraine as a sovereign state, as a nation, as it is, with the Western course, with everything that we want. The question is how many territories we'll be able to take back from Russians.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, with that, thank you again so much. We're so lucky you have power. And I'm going to kick it back over to Rachel. The big lesson here for me, we need to think of Russia as a mafioso, not as a politician. So thank you so much for that. Rachel?